2023 NFL Wild Card review. I'm a little late to the game, but not too late to take some highlights from the Wild Card round. We had a total of 6 games, and it was an interesting weekend because 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, 2 games Monday. It actually worked out quite well. I think there's still too many games. You don't need more than 6 teams in each conference getting into the playoffs, and for years I felt like that's even too many. But schedule-wise, it worked out well, with the Bills game getting moved to Monday, and it ended up being Martin Luther King Day, so just about all of us had the day off. Starts off with the Browns and Texans. I admit it was not a good weekend for me picking the games. I went 2-4. Now, if I had to reduce this game down to one key difference between these two teams, it was quarterback. The limitations of Joe Flacco, I mean, very cool him coming back and overall playing well. But the Texans, appear to have a very special young quarterback in C.J. Stroud. And his ability to move in the pocket, unlike Joe Flacco, was a major difference in this one. The Browns were one-dimensional. They had an opportunity to actually pick off Stroud. I mean, as great of a game he had, it's not as if he didn't make any mistakes. As the game went on, he got more comfortable, he made better plays, and he was excellent. I'm not going to pull the stats out today. You can see the highlights for yourself, but it was an excellent debut. So impressive by him. And I don't mean to oversimplify this one, but once the Texans got rolling, they got rolling. The Browns were not able to establish any runs, so there was a lot of pressure on Flacco. The Texans were able to get to Flacco. Unlike the Browns have pass rushers such as Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. They were, for the most part, non-factors in this one. Texans made the big plays, and the Browns had the ball for the entire third quarter nearly, and they weren't able to do much with it. And it came down to turnovers. The Texans won the turnover battle. They had the better quarterback. They were able to get to the quarterback, the opposing quarterback, and they win. First playoff win for DeMeco Ryan, C.J. Stroud. And congratulations to the Texans. And they're in an interesting position. There was no pressure on them. There was more pressure on the Browns. I still believe they had the better roster. Just unfortunate the injuries, and the offensive line injuries piled up for them. They obviously lost Watson for the season, and I don't know what to make of his career. They lost Nick Chubb. Still a good season, and they played hard, and they didn't give up. In a fine season, it was just the wrong opponent, and things did not turn out their way. They were outplayed. The Texans move on, and the Browns go home. Second game. And this was the night game. It was a Peacock game, and I, like many of you, I'm sure, caved in and got to the game. I had to see Patrick Mahomes. Had to see that cold game. It was one of the coldest games in NFL history, or playoff history, in Kansas City. Not just in Kansas City, but it was one of the coldest playoff games ever. And the Chiefs win it, and they win it comfortably. It was really a shame. I was hoping this game was going to either be in Miami for the playoffs, or it would have been under better playing conditions, but that's no excuse for the Dolphins. The Dolphins were beat, and they were beat soundly, and it was not really much of a game. It wasn't much of a contest. Actually, both the games on Saturday were dogs, one-sided games. And if you were a Chiefs fan or a Texans fan, you enjoyed it. Otherwise, not a whole lot to see. I mean, you can appreciate good quarterback play, yes. You can appreciate what the Chiefs have done. They have advanced again, yes. So what a disappointing year for the Dolphins. They got to the playoffs, yes, but then they lost the division. They end up having to play on the road. The injuries mounted up. Defense was so thin. This was one of the only games I got right, and I thought this was a easy win because you take a team like the Dolphins. This is a warm weather team. This is a team that's all about pushing the ball down the field, the big plays. In a game like this, you're going to be limited with the big plays, and they really only had the one big one to Tyreek Hill. Otherwise, he was contained. Mostert and Achane couldn't do anything because they're not physical runners. This game demanded physical runners. They weren't going to run well in the cold. Mostert was coming off an injury. Waddle was ineffective. He was coming off an injury, and you're playing, a game that's below zero. It was just a disastrous recipe for the Dolphins. They were not going to win this game. Tua threw some interceptions. He struggled in the cold. And they just couldn't get to the quarterback. I mean, the Chiefs were able to put enough pressure on Tua, but the Dolphins just don't have a pass rush anymore, and they couldn't do anything to Mahomes. And, the Chiefs continue to drop passes, and my opinion is unchanged about the Chiefs. They win, and they continue to go far in the playoffs, and they're going to get to the divisional round, but I believe they're going to lose in the divisional round, and they're actually heading on the road to Buffalo. Patrick Mahomes will finally play a road playoff game. I like the Bills, I'll just say that right now. But, the moment this game was in Kansas City, you knew the Chiefs were going to win facing the Dolphins. What the Chiefs do have going for them is this is the best defense they've had during this run from 2018 to 2023. But their offense, it worked against the Dolphins. They have their problems. They still have their problems at receiver. I don't think they have much of a running game. Mahomes is a little off this year. I mean, still not a guy I would go on my way to bet against. How about that play where his helmet got cracked? That was interesting. But I will say, congratulations, Chiefs. Once again, you've at least made it to the divisional round. Dolphins, they just can't beat the good teams. They can't beat the big boys. And I enjoy watching their style play. It's extremely entertaining. They need to find a way to get more physical. I mean, it starts with having a healthier defense, yes, but maybe the all-speed approach on offense is not the way to go. Maybe it is too much of a good thing, too much of one thing for them, and a good year, yet a disappointing year because they didn't get any further than they did last year. Yet they had their starting quarterback. Just cannot beat the big teams, except I'll say they beat the Cowboys. They did beat the Cowboys. Okay, Sunday games. First one was the afternoon, and I did a whole separate review on the afternoon game between the Packers and The Cowboys, the Packers win, and they win big. They dominated the they dominate. Let's get this right. They dominate the Cowboys thoroughly, and the Cowboys were bad on offense. Make no mistake, they were horrible on defense. I mean, Dak Prescott was off. He was not on the same page with CeeDee Lamb. They couldn't do much on the ground because they were behind the whole game, so it was just pass. But the mistakes were made early. I mean, if you look at the box score and the final score, it's misleading. You know, Dak Prescott still put up huge numbers, yet they're on garbage time. He played terribly in the first half. He had the 2 interceptions. It should have even been 3 interceptions. Well, on the other side, Jordan Love was doing it all. I mean, the Packers came in. I said if they were going to win, they needed and had a chance. They needed to have a balanced attack, and boy, did they ever have a balanced attack. Aaron Jones ran all over the Cowboys' defense, which was supposed to be a great defense. The Cowboys had no answers. And Jordan Love, I mean, as impressive as Stroud was, Jordan Love's performance was more impressive. Doing this on the road. Also his rookie debut in the playoffs, like Stroud, but he was doing this on the road against the Cowboys defense versus doing this at home. I mean, the defense of the Browns is good, but the Cowboys defense at home is better. And generally, of course, the Cowboys blow teams out, but I made the point all year long, the Cowboys played terrible teams throughout the year at home. Early on, Jets, Patriots. They had 2 games against the Giants during the season. They had 2 games against the Commanders. For the most part, they faced weak teams at home. The Eagles team that was absolutely reeling. A Lions team. Okay, Lions advanced. They should have lost to the Lions. I mean, they faced the Lions and the Rams and the Eagles at home. Okay, but there were a lot of pushovers, and I kept saying, if you point to the Bills and Dolphins games on the road, let's see how they do there. They lost to both of them. They got smashed by the 49ers early in the season. They lost the game in Philadelphia, but to see the Cowboys get humiliated like they did at home. Oh, I enjoyed it. Jordan Love, I mean, he gets the game ball. He couldn't have really been much better, could he? He didn't have any, unlike Stroud too, he didn't have any near picks. I mean, just everything. He hit wide open receivers. He hit receivers that were covered well in tight coverage. He was sidearming. He was throwing off his back foot, which you shouldn't do, but he has elite arm strength. He was making quick reads. I mean, he made all the right decisions out there. I mean, his full skill set was on display, and it was as good of a debut as one could ask for. And they beat a playoff rival. On top of it, I mean, there was a lot of single back that they used with double tight ends, and the Cowboys couldn't get to him. I mean, Jordan Love got rid of it fast, but he did in all kinds of ways. And you look at these young weapons that the Packers have, and they've drafted extremely well these last 2 years. So well. Defense, they were able to get enough pressure on Dak Prescott. He had some success running, but those interceptions were a huge difference in this one. It was the turnovers. And the Packers advance. Tied the most points they ever scored in a playoff game. And you think of Rodgers and Favre and the history of the Packers. That's what they did. And they did that on the road, it was just humiliating. They embarrassed the Cowboys, and they just did whatever they want. They struck first on offense. They ran the ball. Cowboys couldn't do anything. They passed the ball. Cowboys didn't do anything. They had no answers. Dan Quinn had no answers. Said Micah Parsons. I mean, where were you? And that goes for the whole Cowboys defense. We're told, oh, this year it's different. It's different this year. Slightly better team. Same old problems, really, at the end of the day. Same old Cowboys. Dak Prescott can't do it when the pressure's on. He melted. I don't care if he had a statistically great year. He doesn't get it done in the playoffs. He doesn't do it. I mean, you look at, just take the last 3 playoffs, wild card exit against the 49ers, didn't do much. Last year, he played well against an 8-9 Buccaneers team, and then struggled against the 49ers, got knocked out in the divisional round. That was their long playoff run of the last 3 years, and or at least counting this year. And then this year, can't get out of the divisional game, get knocked out by a 7 seed, and this is the first time a 7 seed has ever won. But I have to just say congratulations to Matt LaFleur. I underestimated you. Jordan Love, I underestimated you. Having a healthy Aaron Jones helps, and you have drafted better than anyone. I mean, over the last 2 seasons, you see all the starters the Packers have. Now, you don't have necessarily superstars, but you have players, young players that are solid and improving, and it's just across the board. Offensive line, receivers, tight ends, all over on defense. They have just brought in so much talent, and they've hit on the majority of their draft picks, and they're set up nicely here going forward. And now they're headed to San Francisco to face their other playoff rival. For the Cowboys, I don't know how Mike McCarthy keeps his job. I really don't know who would be interested that's better, though. Dan Quinn being the head coach somewhere else, such as Seattle, it looks really bad after giving up 48 points. I mean, as bad as the offense was, the defense was the problem. But it was a day to celebrate for the 31 other NFL franchises and their fan bases. The Cowboys are eliminated, and for that I will say something that I will not say very often: thank you, Packers. Sunday evening, Rams and Lions. The best game of the weekend, by far, because it was competitive, it was close. You had the storyline of these two quarterbacks facing their old teams. So you saw Tyreek Hill had the touchdown, but it was a disappointing game for him against his old team, the Chiefs. And Mike McCarthy getting just embarrassed. I don't know what else to say. They got destroyed. Don't look at the box score. By his old team, the Packers. So disappointing for him. But then you have Jared Goff getting the best of his former team, the team that drafted him, the Rams. He stepped up. Didn't see it coming. Myself. Both quarterbacks actually played very well. Stafford and Goff. But Goff gets the victory, and this came down to, well, they actually had 2 excellent offensive lines. That the Lions protected Jared Goff. And overall, the Rams, I mean, Puka Nacua had one of the best rookie debuts, regardless of position, in NFL playoff history. And the guy is just, I was saying this to my brother, and I was like, he reminds you of Jerry Rice in this way. There's not one thing that jumps off the TV where you say, oh, he's better than everybody else. But what does he do? He consistently beats guys. He's hardworking. He's a good route runner. He's got good hands. He has enough speed. He makes the plays. He has awareness. He's a team guy. I mean, he's everything you want in a receiver. Flashy? No. Fastest? Biggest? Strongest? No. Does he do everything well and perform? Yes. Does he get the job done? Yes. Is he one of the best receivers already in the NFL? Yes. I mean, look at the fact that Cooper Kupp, I know he's had his injuries, but he's the number one receiver, not Cooper Kupp, the former Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp just 2 seasons ago. Puka Nacua is the number one receiver. But this was the Lions' day. And what the Lions were able to do was, when they were in the red zone, they got touchdowns. The Rams had to settle for field goals. That was the major difference in this one. Hutchinson, huge game. I mean, talk about stepping up. And the Lions are another team themselves who've drafted very well. I still am a little skeptical, and I have my doubts about Jared Goff going forward, especially if you put him on the road. But the good news for the Lions is they're going to have another home game. I still feel the interceptions are going to be coming, though. Eventually, some of these ugly interceptions are going to come from Jared Goff, but congratulations to the Lions. I don't want to be negative here. You won. You won at home. And that was the first time many people had seen or witnessed a Lions home victory, and you have moved on to the divisional round. I want to say McVay did a very fine job on the other side, too. Came up short, but considering the turnover and the changes, very well coached year from Sean McVay. Monday games. Bills and Steelers. To me, the Steelers were by far the weakest team in all the playoffs. Okay, they got in because, well, they're 7 seeds. So they found a way to get in. They were the weakest of all the playoff teams. And the Bills allowed the Steelers to hang in for a little while. They won this game convincingly, as they should have. Moved on. I mean, the Steelers have their problems on a quarterback. I mean, you can't have that going on in the playoffs, especially in 2023. You can't have quarterback problems in the playoffs. Josh Allen was strong. He was good. I mean, they still continue to get more injuries, the Bills, which is concerning for them. But what a turnaround, what a winning streak for the Bills. And now they're going to host the Chiefs. At long last, they're making the Chiefs come to Buffalo to play a playoff game. And I will say I like the Bills. Another playoff matchup between the Bills and the Chiefs. And then the final game, Buccaneers and Eagles. Man, Eagles. Buccaneers aren't very good, obviously, but they were more than enough for the Eagles to handle. They were too much for the Eagles. Yes. Jalen Hurts has been exposed. He has his troubles against the blitz. That's with a great offensive line. I mean, you're talking about multiple All-Pros on the same offensive line with Kelsey and Lane Johnson. Mailata is very good as well. What a just collapse. I mean, I can't remember a collapse like the Eagles. 10-1. Then you fall all the way down to 11-6. You lose your division. Then you have to go on the road and you get knocked out in the first round. Not by some great team, by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Baker Mayfield Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it wasn't close. It wasn't close with the Buccaneers winning. I don't have to get in the details. The Eagles, I just sit there and say, well, where's the fight? Kind of like the Cowboys. Where is the fight here? Where's the urgency? I didn't see any. And they lose big on the road, and you wonder about their head coach. You look at his staff, it's weak. I mean, he could get fired after just getting them the Super Bowl in 2021 and 22, and so close, and now he may just get fired. I mean, someone's got to be held responsible for what happened there. And they had some injuries, yeah, but this is still a very talented team. And originally I was picking the Eagles. I was going to say, if you have some self-respect and some pride as a team, how do you lose this game, Eagles? And you couldn't even really make much of a game out of it. I mean, I didn't know A.J. Brown wasn't playing. When they said A.J. Brown wasn't going for the game, I'm like, oh, never mind, I would definitely pick the Bucs. With all the problems they have, and then you take away A.J. Brown. Like I said, questions at coach, questions at quarterback. Not that you're going to change quarterbacks, but you wonder if last year was more of a just one-hit wonder for Jalen Hurts. He took such a leap from 2021 2022. I mean, he sure came back down to earth. I mean, he was just an average quarterback in many ways this year when he was one of the best last year. I mean, some people went so far to even have him like number 2 in all their quarterback rankings, putting him ahead of Burrow and putting him ahead of Josh Allen. I just myself couldn't go along with that. And you knew it wasn't the Eagles' night when the brotherly shove did not work. You knew the magic was gone. And they were not going to win this one. It was not going to happen. It helps when you have Vita Vea on the other side, too. Bucs move on. They win. And overall, it wasn't a good playoff weekend. I mean, the only good game of the whole bunch, I mean, yeah, it was great watching the Packers do what they did to the Cowboys. Yeah. But competitive game. The only competitive game was the Lions and Rams. Otherwise, you got a lot of mediocre to bad football games. And I have to say, too, I mean, that's why I always say every year, just take me to divisional rounds. Too many teams. Waters down the playoffs. Which is true. And sure, you'll have some teams break impressively like the Packers. That can happen. But I think it's bad for the NFL, though, when you have all these teams. AFC, Browns 11-5, knocked out. Cowboys, number 2 seed, knocked out. Eagles, 11-win wildcard team, knocked out. You have all those teams out of the playoffs after the first round, and you start saying, well, what's the regular season worth? You get all these wins, and then you lose. I'm sure the Browns and Eagles were on the road. That didn't help them. But just for the sake of the sport and the game, and I'm not just saying this as a 49ers fan, just being a favorite here, showing gross favoritism, but please, number 1 seeds, can you at least make it to the conference title games, 49ers and Ravens? I mean, I think they are the best 2 teams, but I think I've already seen enough upsets already. Especially, yeah, as much as I dislike the Cowboys, seeing the Cowboys taken down as they were. I mean, I was hoping myself that we'd see the 49ers get in the championship game against either the Cowboys or the Eagles, and neither are going to happen. So you're left with the final 8, the final 4 games. Chiefs and Bills finally in Buffalo. Good. Texans and Ravens kick the whole thing off. That's the very first divisional game. Very fascinating game, but a dangerous game for the Ravens. 49ers host the Packers. Similarly, very dangerous game for the 49ers. And then the Lions Buccaneers.